I have not spoken about David Hogg very much, but I was really heartened, back when there was the selection of the chair of the DNC chair, who wasn't my first choice, but the David Hogg was in the mix because he's a young kid. Obviously, he was kind of an activist. Really, it's disgusting to call it a breakout star, but he really was. He became an activist not by choice, but because his school, Parkland, was the victim of a mass shooting and a victim of the inaction of lawmakers to do anything about gun control and prevent children from being summarily murdered in a place that they should be safe, which is at school. And he became vice chair for the DNC, one of, I believe there's multiple. And about a month ago, he was like, look, we need to primary any Democrat who he called asleep at the wheel, right? And this is what we've all been saying. This is what even the most kind of like liberal, I don't know, maybe they owned a Tesla, now they're mad at Tesla. Like, they're like, look, we need to get we're pissed at Chuck Schumer. We're pissed at Chuck Schumer for going along with Donald Trump's budget, giving him everything he wants. We're pissed at all these senators for voting for Trump nominees. It's not just the Fettermans, right? It's not. And I think we got a taste of this during Biden's year, as we saw that two Democrats in the Senate were single-handedly holding up an actual agenda that would have helped so many people, right? And that was Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. And so we started to get into the habit of calling out some of the Democrats, and liberals were joining in on that very much so, not just lefties. And that was a good thing, and specifically young people. And so David Hogg, basically was like, look, we're going to primary in safe districts, meaning safe blue districts, asleep at the wheel Democrats. And here he is back a few months ago on MSNBC, sort of explaining his rationale for why he wanted to do this.
We're fighting to give you the best person to represent you possible, regardless of whether or not you're in a purple district or a very blue district. And ultimately, it's not me or any member of the DNC that is deciding these elections. It's the voters in these districts. And all we're trying to say here is let's give people the option, when our party has a record low approval rating, to say, here is what we're going to do, here's how we're trying to address that, and here's how we're trying to use democracy ourselves to build the strongest Democratic Party possible so that we can get back to giving people an alternative vision for our country. That is not simply saying that we're against Donald Trump, because here's the question that I would pose to the people that don't agree with this. If this is not the answer,
what is?
How are we going to address that approval rating? I know this is controversial, but look, we are not challenging people that are in competitive seats that could risk us losing a majority in state legislatures or in Congress, and we're only challenging Democratic members in safe seats for the U.S. House. That's it. And we're also going to be supporting people running in competitive races. And what I'll tell you, what I'm looking at, Simone, is not who is calling me saying, oh my God, this is so great what you're doing necessarily from inside of DC. What I'm looking at is, who are the young people? What are they saying? And I've never had so many young people come up to me to say, thank you for what you're doing. I was losing faith in politics. I was losing faith in the Democratic Party, but you've helped to reinstill it. And that's what matters here. We can't have a future of our party when we are losing vote share with every single demographic except the elderly and people with PhDs, basically.
So this is a guy who still believes in the Democratic Party. He's doing this because he loves the Democratic Party, when a lot of us are like, I don't know if it can be saved. This is, once again, the Democrats don't know a good thing when it hits them in the effing face. He comes along and he's like, let's primary, or let's support primaries for Democrats that seem like, look, the sun is set. Their time is done. Their cancer is back, Jerry Connolly, right? It's time to go. Maybe they're about to die in office, Dianne Feinstein. They quite literally, and again, this is just today, he's on like geriatric watch, which is Ken Klippenstein, posted this video of Debbie Dingell, who's 71 years old, who, by the way, Dingell's politics are good. I'm not saying Dingell's for Medicare for all, but like, It's one thing to be for Medicare for all, and it's another thing to fight for Medicare for all. So what are you doing to fight for it? Debbie Dingell straight up sleeping in a hearing. Now, look, I'm not saying I would stay awake while some Republican likely is droning on. I don't know. But that is who is leading us. And David Hogg has now been crucified effectively for saying Democrats are asleep at the wheel. Meanwhile, Democrats are quite literally asleep at the wheel. So this is from Politico saying David Hogg tried pitching a compromise to the DNC. He was rebuffed. The 25-year-old's vice chair's plan to attack sleep at the wheel Democrats has rattled the party. Let's just sort of dig into the backstory here of this. This just came out a few days ago. David Hogg, Democratic National Committee official who ignited a firestorm inside the party with his pledge to fund primary challenges to asleep at the wheel Democrats, privately pitched a compromise to the party in recent days, the party head. Speaking with DNC Chair Ken Martin, Hogg proposed a so-called internal firewall in which he would stay on as vice chair, but be barred from accessing any internal DNC information about congressional and state legislative races as long as he was supporting challengers, according to 3 people familiar with the conversations and granted anonymity to describe them. Whoa. So that's massive. So he's basically saying, look, I'm starting this PAC to raise money to oust, what I'm calling and what other people are calling asleep at the wheel Democrats. But if I support a challenger, you can create an internal firewall so I won't have access to internal emails about this incumbent. Like, that's incredibly, that's a creative way of cutting yourself out of any, decision making, but also possible conflict of interest. I don't know. Like, that's a really interesting, I wouldn't have said that, like, whatever. But anyway, he's trying. He's like, look, if you're scared of me, here's a way to be less scared of me. Ken Martin shot down the idea, the people said, expressing confidence that he would win the votes of the DNC to pass a rule requiring party officials to remain neutral in primaries, essentially forcing Hogg to drop his primary project or step down. Jane Klebe, a Martin ally and another DNC vice chair, said she also spoke with Hogg about his proposed compromise. She called it nonsense and argued it's not the DNC's job to create a firewall for one officer. It's the officer's responsibility to create a firewall. The exchange between Hogg and DNC leaders marked a breakdown in efforts to diffuse controversy surrounding his announcement that the group he co-founded, Leaders We Deserve, would spend $20 million in safe blue Democratic primaries against House incumbent members. Martin has given Hogg an ultimatum, telling reporters that party officers can't be both the referee and also the player at the same time. Does anyone among us think that the DNC is the ref? Who among us actually believes that the DNC is a fair arbiter of Democratic primaries? Come on. 2016, 2020 coalescing to beat Bernie again, not forcing Biden to drop out, not holding even a rapid primary in 2024. The superdelegates were reformed 2016 to 2020, but seriously, do any of us really think that they're honest referees? No. Of course they protect incumbents. And so what he's saying is, let's shake that up. We don't always have to protect incumbents. We do have to protect the party. And this is how I'm protecting the party. And you just heard him say it, because your approval rating is dog shit. Nobody trusts the Democrats. There are no leaders. Chuck Schumer is aroused by his own inefficiency. Okay? These people are not the guys who are going to take us through this moment and fight against the fascists. They're just not. You know that. We know that. Debbie Dingell, half asleep, knows that. Martin has given Hogg an ultimatum, telling reporters party officials can't be referee and also player. Martin told Politico that party bosses should not be involved in putting their thumb on the scale. I said I campaigned on this, while Hogg, in an interview, stood by his peace offering. He said the DNC, quote, doesn't really have a role in congressional races, and therefore there shouldn't be a real issue or real conflict. But Hogg is not backing down. Instead, he's mounting a charm offensive. 25-year-old Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting survivor recently spoke at a fundraiser for Democrats in Rhode Island. He donated $100,000 to the House Democrats' campaign arm. He is scrambling behind the scenes to win over Democratic activists and operatives, and he's finding some success. Even as Hogg has enraged many establishment-oriented Democrats, he's gaining the support of others on the left, including state party leaders, labor officials, and powerful media voices who view him as tapping into a more aggressive approach in the second Donald Trump era. I mean, he did just follow me back on Twitter. So, David, holler at your girl. James Carville, he has captured the attention of Charlemagne the God. Please stop calling Charlemagne the God a political voice. The influential radio host, okay, there we go, who's publicly thrown his weight behind him. He said in an interview that Hogg is absolutely right. I don't know why people are acting like he's not, and that Democrats who aren't willing to fight for democracy in the way that needs to be fought for, they need to be banished 100%. We are going to die. Like we are effed, guys. We're effed. And when you think about it, you're like, okay, well, what can we do? What is other than we can take the streets, obviously, we can protest the fascists, we can support our community members, but we have to make sure our side of the street is clean and is ready to take on these fascists, and that is the Democratic Party. And again, if they are unwilling to change, there should be an actual robust and real alternative to them, a serious alternative that can run in campaigns in 50 states. Obviously, I support groups like the Working Families Party. I support them. I support their strategy. But I do think that, we all have to get real about being contentious. I think you guys remember many months ago, I had Matthew Smucker on the show. And I want to have him back. Is it Matthew or Jonathan? Matthew Smucker, I believe. And he was like, look, we need to get back to that 2017 first Trump term energy where we actually were adversarial and fought. And along the way, there was a lot of sort of like, hey, maybe we can, do this the policy route. Maybe we don't have to be as confrontational. No, we have to be even more confrontational, and we have to be confrontational with Democrats. Number one, it doesn't mean you love Trump. This is not the same thing. James Carville, the longtime Democrat strategist who once dubbed Hogg a contemptible little twerp, went from vehemently disagreeing with Hogg to posting on social media that the DNC needs him because David Hogg fights. Oh, okay. Good to Gator got his bite back. Hogg said that after appearing on a podcast with Carville, he texted the strategist saying he respected the work he had done and would love to connect more. Carville then called him and soon after took his side. Hogg is working to pull more Democrats along with him. Speaking at a fundraiser in Rhode Island, Hogg said, quote, "We need to show the reason to vote for Democrats isn't because we're the less bad of two options. It's because we're the best option." Yes, I love that. Hogg addressed the dispute. This kid is 25, y'all. It's like, it didn't take him very long. It did not take him long. It does not take one very long to see what is going on in this party. It just takes a few utter disappointments and massive ball fumblings, right? It just takes own goaling yourself year after year after year to be like, I'm pretty sure you're playing for the other team at this point. His plans to oust some Democratic incumbents and the uproar he's triggered have exposed a painful rift among Democrats as they struggle to rebuild their party. The messy conflict threatens to drag on for months, putting a spotlight on Democrats' internal disagreements over generational change, now aggressively to take on Trump. Martin has described the ultimatum he issued to Hogg, proposing to amend the party's bylaws to bar DNC officers from getting involved in party primary campaigns as part of an overall reform package that is not aimed at the vice chair, but it would effectively force Hogg to decide between leaving his vice chair post or walling himself off from the primaries launched by his group leaders We Deserve. The overhaul is expected to come up for a vote this summer. Even if some of Hogg's allies are skeptical he'd be able to defeat Martin's proposal. Unfortunately, I do think it'll pass. So they're going to force him out because it looks like we're bullying out a young Democrat who's trying to be a change agent. This woman argued that Hogg should be grandfathered in because it really looks like we're bullying out a young Democrat who's trying to be a change agent. Yes, you are. That's exactly what you're doing. You're bullying him out. You're changing the rules to say we can, and this is the thing, it's like, if David Hogg is correct and he's offering you this way to insulate him if he's supporting a primary challenger, that the DNC is not as active in congressional primaries. Like what's the harm? And isn't it sort of this example of real democracy in action? And ultimate, we're not MAGA by saying we can tolerate multiple primary challengers. We can tolerate a primary and challenging an incumbent, a challenger challenging an incumbent. Like we accept this kind of democracy. We're not MAGA. We're not a cult. We don't demand party loyalty. But again, and I know I love y'all on YouTube and I love y'all on the podcast, but my God, some of the blue MAGA that somehow bubble to the surface on social media are truly despicable. They cannot hold two things in their brain. It is either you're sucking up to Trump and you love him and you wanted Trump to win, or like you do anything Chuck Schumer says. How dare you say a word? Don't ever point out how representatives are falling asleep in their chairs. Like, you guys kind of look like a cult when you act like that. I'm sorry to say, but you do. Jane Klebe said that as a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016, she felt the party influenced that primary as leaked emails revealed the DNC officials derided Sanders' bid against Clinton, arguing that is what we were trying to fix. No quote unquote charm offensive or media appearance of David, she said, will change the fundamental fact of what we're trying to do at the DNC, which is hopefully change it. Stuart Applebaum, a DNC associate chair, said that he and every other DNC officer except for Hogg signed a neutrality policy at a private party retreat in March. As president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, he said that that meant a big change for me, but it's crucial that Democratic Party be seen as impartial. Hogg said, if that's the rule they implement, they're going to have to vote me out if that's what they want. I would prefer that we come to a deal here. Hogg's group has pledged that it's moving forward with its plans to target House Democrats anywhere from 10 to 50 districts. When he was in Rhode Island for state party fundraiser last year, Hogg met with progressive legislators and activists to discuss potential primary challenges, according to a person familiar with the conversation. Asked about the meeting, Hogg said Rhode Island is not currently on his group list of targets, but said, I can't write off any state at this point because we're looking at all districts in the country. I support that. I think that's good. I would like people to work together a little bit more. Like, can you holler at the Justice Democrats? Can we get a little Working Families Party involved? Can we all coalition build a little bit here? Because I support this as an initiative. I don't support it if it's like, David Hogg feels like he might be reinventing a wheel that's like still trying to sort of run here and roll. I truly think the Justice Democrats, they're already running candidates. I think they're excellent and they've proven that. So, that's just my concern. But, the party machinery they feel annoyed and they need to calm the F down because it's so funny. They're like, we're going to sign a neutrality agreement about, primaries. And it's like, yeah, we see you've already signed a neutrality agreement with the Donald Trump fascist administration. Okay. You've been signing neutrality agreements for a very long time now. I'm pretty sure neutrality is why we're in the situation that we're in. Howard Zinn once said, you can't be neutral on a moving train. It's a great book. Everybody should read it. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.